Hi, and welcome to this episode of Brewed for Change by Green Frontier Capital. I'm your host for today. I'm Karan Mehta. Uh, I'm the venture principal here for Green Frontier Capital. And today we have like a founder with us who really requires no introduction. We have Mr. Punit Goyal of BluSmart. BluSmart, of course, is the first EV taxi company in India. So, look, I don't want to eat into the introduction. So Puneet, thank you so much for being here. Maybe if you could start off with a brief introduction to yourself, though I don't think you need too much of one, but if you could just like give us like a short, brief introduction to yourself and your entrepreneurial journey and what got you to start BluSmart.
Thank you, Karan, so much for inviting me on your podcast. And we are grateful to Green Frontier Capital for being an investor in BluSmart, and we're extremely grateful for also all our investments in the past that Green Frontier did. Um, so I've been a green energy serial entrepreneur. I started my entrepreneurial journey back in 2008, um, and spent 10 years building solar projects in India. And the first venture which I founded back in 2008 was for manufacturing solar panels. And between 2008 to 2012, we were manufacturing solar panels in India and exporting these panels to Europe. Um, and there was a huge opportunity to make solar panels in India and export. And so I pursued that opportunity for 4 years. And India then opened up its doors for setting up solar power plants. So in my second and third ventures, I set up solar power plants in India, 20 megawatt solar power plant in Gujarat back in 2012, another 70 megawatt solar power plant in 2016-17 in the state of Maharashtra and Dhule. And during my second venture, I met my co-founder Anmol Jaggi, who is my co-founder at BluSmart today. And Anmol's company, Gensol Engineering, at that time built, design, engineered the 20 megawatt solar asset back in 2012 for my company, and that's how we both met. Uh, the journey to BluSmart happened over 16, 17, 18, and I was doing some research in the space of EVs and the role that EVs will play in the future in markets like India. And I was in the US at that time trying to figure out what the industry would look like, and I chanced upon a few interesting meetings that actually shaped what BluSmart is today. And one of the most pivotal or critical or most important meeting was meeting the CFO of Uber, Brent Callinicos. He served as CFO of Uber between 14, 15 circa, and he had helped raise Uber $5 billion at a $42 billion valuation. Something very interesting which he told, and I was dining with him at the Malibu Club in Los Angeles. And post our dinner, when we came out, I saw a charge point charging station charging a BMW i8 car. Prior to that, I'd been on the Stanford campus, driven around the Tesla, kind of knew what Tesla was in 15, 16, but was not really into EVs. But 16, 17, on the visit to Google campus, where I saw solar panels charging, uh, the charging station in turn charging an EV, meeting with Brent, and the time I spent with the Hyperloop One team, I understood that the future will be EV, and you have to embrace it and not defend it. Uh, Also, something very interesting that Brent said at that time was that platforms like Lyft and Uber are Airbnbs of mobility or Match.coms of mobility, and they will find it increasingly difficult to decarbonize as EVs come in full flow. And there'll be a lot of challenges that they will face in the EV world. So there could be an opportunity to build out a energy infrastructure, mobility, and technology company, which is fully integrated, fully intertwined, like Growth. And if somebody can do that, that will be a game changer. So that was the initial idea that I thought of in 2017, and then obviously market wasn't right then. The cost of EVs were slightly higher, range of cars were lower, there was lack of charging infra. policy framework was not in place, fame was coming up in talks. So we kept deliberating on the idea till 2018, and then 2018 we had made up our mind that we want to go big in EV. And in the meeting with Anmol, he was also very clear that the future is electric. And Anmol also was very clear from day one that he said, Puneet, uh, it's imminent, then all cars will eventually become electric. Uh, how are we going to do it is going to be a decision that we jointly need to take. What according to Anmol was the biggest challenge at that time, and we know it was a huge challenge, was charging infra. So Anmol's idea was to build out a large EV charging infra network on the likes of IOCL, BPCL, HPCL. These are oil and gas companies in India, and to build out a massive EV charging infra network that will really accelerate the adoption of EV. But then the whole idea was that if we build out the charging infra and there's no utilization, then that business will fall flat. So if we could do two businesses instead of thinking on siloed principle, a ride hailing business, which becomes the anchor tenant for the charging infra business, and build out a large charging infrastructure business, which becomes the bedrock on which the ride hailing business will scale, then we create a BluSmart virtuous cycle that will support each other. And the charging infra supports ride hailing will support charging infra, and then we can serve third party demand. And that is where we arrived at a logical conclusion. And we started off the company. Then, after 3, 4 months of ideation, we started the company, launched the company in October 2018. So that's basically the journey from
Ah, that's
clean
quite.
energy to EV.
So honestly, that's quite interesting, right? Because people do not know BluSmart as actually an infra player as well, building out the actual charging stations. They only know you like as a cab aggregator or the EV fleet taxi company. Uh, Between 2016, you said like 2016, you saw this. You were a little bit like ahead of the curve, and the formal company formation and the sort of let's let's now go with this. The idea was concretized in 2018. In those sort of 2 years, what I would like to like understand is that how did you go about your entire ideating and decision making process and testing of hypotheses before you came to this thing that, listen, we need to have the charging infra and we need to have the taxis, and only then will this thing work?
Look, it was pretty easy for us, given that we were not the first movers, and there were the two platforms which were in India, which were Ola and Uber, who were trying to also kind of enter the EV space since 2016, but kind of were struggling big time. So we thought that let's test them out. We figured out that it will be increasingly challenging for Uber to go electric. So we thought, why don't we become partner to them? If we launch the BluSmart platform or service, ride-hailing business partnering Uber with our charging infra, our EVs on the Uber platform, we can we can make money off a existing ride-hailing platform, which was Uber. So in Jan 19, we started with 10 cars on the Uber platform, and over 1 year, we scaled to 300 cars on the Uber platform. So you could see the journey from 10 cars to 300 cars in one calendar year, where BluSmart branded cars were available for customers on the Uber platform. And if you would summon an Uber, and if a BluSmart is close by, the car would arrive. It's very similar to, if I can give an analogy, if you book an Air India ticket,
Yeah.
but a Vistara shows up, and you're pleasantly surprised that you were expecting Air India service and quality, but although the plane, decal, crew, the boarding process, embarkation, disembarkation is amazing, and the entire feel good factor is there because of Vistara is a much better service than Air India. And this is the same experience the customers were kind of experiencing on the Uber platform. And inside, we had that card that we are launching soon. BluSmart is coming soon. So that is the way we tested the hypothesis that look, there's a need for EVs. EVs can run on a massive platform like Uber. What needed to run those EVs were charging infra. So we had created enough charging infra, decent charging infra that was supporting those 300 EVs, and we were milking a ready-made ride-hailing platform which was available. Uh, then we thought, because we have created this, both the supply for EVs is ready, charging is ready. What we need to now do is just switch to our own platform and be the demand creator ourselves. Then COVID happened and the mobility world was shut down in 2020. It took another year for it to be for revival to happen. 2021 we scaled to 400 cars, and October 21 we were 400 cars, and December 2023 we are 5,500 cars. So we have significantly scaled in 2 years, and the journey has been like a J curve for us. We have really scaled. We crossed 10 million trips, 10.5 million trips now. We've traveled over 325 million kilometers. Over the last 2 years, the journey has been amazing for us. What played out was our key thesis and our fundamental founding tenets of the company. We always knew that the future is electric. That continues to play out. Everybody is now embracing EVs. People who didn't know the E of EV in 2018 are now probably doing PhD in EV space. So that's playing out well. The advantage of using EVs in a country like India is very clear because we import 85% of our oil, crude oil is imported. There's a lot of dependency on import of oil, and the cost of gas and petrol in India is really shot up. It used to be about nearly 46 rupees a kg or 40 rupees a kg was the cost of gas in 2017-18. Now the cost of gas has gone up. It went up to 95 rupees a kg and then came down to about 85 rupees a kg, CNG, which is a mainstay for mobility. The cost of petrol and diesel was about 72 rupees a liter back in 2018-19 circa. Now it went to north of 100 rupees a liter. So we always knew, being from the energy field, that India will see this massive wave of upswing in the cost for CNG and for petrol and diesel, and using EVs, using sustainable power. The power cost has been sustainable over last many years. Using EVs is the right thing. Second fundamental founding tenet was, uh, which has played out very well and it's validated by global platforms, by PitchBook also, who wrote a report, that to bring EVs on the road, you need tons of charging infra. And we knew that platforms like Uber and Ola were built with the premise that they were Mac.com of mobility or Airbnb of mobility,
Yeah,
where they
yeah,
expect the cars to be on the road, and they expect people to bring cars on the table.
exactly. Yeah,
And in India, with asset ownership is 40 cars per thousand people, Uber's biggest strength in the US is the biggest weakness in India. So US is a market where there are 750 cars per thousand people. So you can create, and it's a $2 trillion automobile market. So you can create Airbnb of mobility. India is a 40 car per thousand people market and is the largest two-wheeler and three-wheeler market in the world. 75% of Indians use two-wheelers, three-wheelers, cycles, bicycles, tricycles. Only 40 Indians out of 1,000 Indians own a car. And we knew that they are these 40 Indians who own, out of 1,000 Indians who own a car, will not be the first ones to embrace EV, right? And bring an EV on the table and then drive on the Uber platform. We have very long drawn process. And the drivers, we also understood, with COVID or pre-COVID times, were not keen to bring new cars on the platform of Uber. They were really struggling with interest rates, which are going up. Uh, Uber just got listed in Q1 2019, CY 2019. So they also stopped incentivizing drivers. A lot of things were happening. And we knew that also that drivers' core skill set is to drive. They are
yeah,
not Macquarie's or JP Morgan's or Fairfax's of the world. So we decouple the driver from asset ownership, and we started bringing cars through DFIs, which played out well. We institutionalized the entire supply side where charging infra or cars. The driver is a gig driver who comes in, drives. The drivers were really happy. We created inclusive, equitable economic opportunities for driver partners. DFIs were very happy investing in depreciating assets. We became the platform that monetized all this. And that was the second fundamental founding tenet. The third tenet was around the customer centricity. And the customer piece we thought is the most important one out of all these tenets. And we knew from day one that we can't beat Uber on scale in day one. Maybe over the 10 years we can beat Uber or Ola combined. But the journey, the entry will be through quality. And learnings from Starbucks or learnings from Indigo, how Indigo started in 2006 with 10 aircrafts. Indigo took on the might of Air India and Jet Airways with quality, not with quantity. And we thought if we also do basics right, give the customers on-time service, clean car, green car, noiseless car, well uh, behaved driver, clean car, that will be very appealing. Secondly, we will not do any surge pricing. Third, we won't do any ride denial. And these are very basic things. If we do right, we may, with a capital M, may win the hearts of customers and they may shift to BluSmart. Let's take a call on that. We did that, and we have done now over 10.5 million trips,
You
nearly on
mentioned
a million,
you
nearly on a
actually have
million. Yeah,
you actually
yeah,
have eaten up into a lot of my questions, which is a good thing. But actually, one of the things that I wanted, which again people don't realize, is that you did start off this business working with Uber, or working with the aggregators.
yeah.
Today, like people like an Everest who's coming into the fray and actually doing what you did back in 2018-19 with Uber, but doing it like on a much larger scale. Now, Uber's really picked up their game, or even like Ola's really picked up their game in terms of EVs like on the road. So, how does that, in terms of competition, uh, really heating up? How does that affect a Blue Smart?
It doesn't. I think the market opportunity is massive. And to take on BluSmart, I don't think Ola and Uber combined need EV. I think if somebody has to take BluSmart on, they can add more CNG cars because the demand is so big and the need for mobility is massive. Though take on BluSmart, EVs will be very painful for the competition because they will need to invest tons of charging infra, bring on thousands of EVs. That is a very time-consuming process.
But that's happening,
But
right? Like,
but what they are doing, what they have been doing for 10 years, that they know what to do. So to take on BluSmart, it'll be advisable they add 20,000 CNG cars because you don't need charging infra for that, and you can add 20,000 CNG cars overnight. But because they're unable to do so, it
yeah.
actually validates our thesis that the business models of these platforms are followed in India. They were created for the US market. A very important event occurred, Karan, in the history of Uber, was that they became the second ride-hailing company in the world to get listed on any stock exchange after Lyft got listed in Q4 2019 CY and Uber got listed in Q1 CY 2019. Uber kind of realized that India is a small market. Uber operates in five continents. There are seven continents in the world, and India contributes less than 2.5% to the global quarterly mobility revenue. So it's a very insignificant market compared to the global market. Nearly 63% of Uber's global revenue comes from one single country, the US. So they're pretty strong in that market. India is pretty small, 2.5%. So the main focus right now is to, in the EV space, also go big in London or San Francisco, where the laws are very clear that you have to go fully electric. And the model of Uber was to depend on DC or driver come owner. So in the US world or
Yeah.
in the UK world, individuals own cars who drive on the Uber platform.
Yeah.
That narrative totally changed in India, where they saw that the supply side was crashing. Individual drivers then were not keen to bring car on the platform. So the entire business model of Uber had to be reinvented, and the mighty Uber had to depend on one single fleet provider who will decide the fate of whether Uber will make it to electric or not, and that became Everest. And that actually validates a model that we were saying all this while, that it's the fleet that will make it electric, not platforms which will go electric. So if I remove Everest from the equation, then Uber will have zero EV cars because
Okay.
GoSmart went out, Everest went out.
Yeah.
And if the total scalability of Uber is to depend on one fleet, that also is a very hollowed model that the mighty Uber is depending on one fleet operator, and the fleet operator can do justice and add some cars. But in their case, also Everest, which have been a stalwart and a very large company and doing pretty well for themselves, they have nearly about 8,000 CNG cars, and now they are adding few EVs on the road. They have nearly 800 short thousand EVs on the road, but it's a massive transition journey for them. We always believe in life that transition is a long-term process. Born electric is a very different process, and we were born as a born electric integrated EV charging and EV ride-hailing company. So Uber's success is dependent on three very important things. If the platform runs, Everest brings cars, somebody builds charging infra for them to support Everest. So Everest fleet, somebody is charging, Uber's ride-hailing platform. All three get done, then Uber gets EV. BluSmart does all by itself. Our own fleet, our own charging infra, our own ride-hailing platform. So there is a very different thematic approach into how Uber is trying to go electric with the help of two suppliers,
Got
some
it.
large charging company trying to help Everest to charge their car, Then Everest, after getting all that paraphernalia done, driving, putting some of the cars on Uber platform, it's a very different approach. And we believe that all approaches work and not work. Like in the aviation space, also SpiceJet has its own strategy, Indigo has its own strategy, Air Vistara has its own strategy, and Air India has its own strategy. But we know which one is working well. So, so there is a need and room for all players, and Uber has a massive headroom. So is Ola. But the beauty of BluSmart is that despite the being the last mover in the space, we have taken a lot of market share from the competition because we are building the company with a key messaging that we will deliver quality to the consumer. So the love that we are getting from consumer is paramount. Consumers don't use us because we are an EV. Consumers use BluSmart because of our service quality. Also, some of the Ivy League educated customers and people living in Delhi NCR now realize there's a need of using EV. The future has to be green and clean. So these educated class living in mega cities are now embracing EVs, but 95% of all our customers use BluSmart not because we're electric, because we're a better service than the competition out there. And hence they shifted right to BluSmart. I mean, they have been using Ola and Uber for 10 years. And when they found a better product, a better service in the market, they simply swiped right and they came to BluSmart. It's like in the aviation space, people have been flying Air India in the 90s, Jet in the early 2000s. Same people are flying in the late 2000s, Indigo. So people have been flying for 20, 30 years. It's just that they kept shifting the airline. Customer is the thing. And that's the thought process at our case. We believe every ride hailing platform has their duty and responsibility to go electric. Some will do it over 10 years, some will do it faster. And I think it's our joint effort to make India go green. So we wish
So
Uber and our
very
friends
quickly
to,
to
yeah.
just like go on that, right? Because like y'all have sort of trailblazed the path for a startup per se to sort of come in and take on the might of a large established cab hailing business in the country. But there are like a lot of companies now following you in that path. So how do you see competition in this industry play out very quickly? If you could just tell me, like over the next 5, 7 years.
Again, Karan, our thought process is very simple that a lot of people are probably entering the space and trying to join the EV space with different approaches. But the approach that will actually play out and somebody can copy BluSmart, there could be an opportunity to do that as a huge opportunity, actually, I would say. But that is to build a full stackish model.
Yeah,
We still don't know any company in India till now, it's been 5 years of what we're doing, who is building a born electric, fully integrated, full stack EV ride hailing service and EV charging network with their own technology layer, which is born electric. There's no company which is building their own charging infra, which is large scale, with their own technology, with their own charging infra. There's no one. Everybody is building businesses with siloed principles. You want to launch few EVs, some companies are doing it. There's some companies that are building large scale charging infra, figuring out the fleet will come, personal EVs will come. But we took a very different route. Our approach was very crystal clear that to truly decarbonize mobility and at scale, even shifting to renewable energy. So this year, 2024, BluSmart will 100% shift to renewable energy. And not only in India or Asia, will become the first largest EV ride hailing service and charging network in the world to be 100%
to be
powered by
completely
renewable
clean.
energy.
Yeah,
And this all can only happen if you think at scale. And to think at scale, your fundamental founding tenets have to be rock solid.
got
And
it.
that is where we are coming from. We believe there'll be regional players, like in politics, also there are regional parties, but there are two central parties which are ultimately still doing, and there are so many more coming up, like diamond dozen parties keep coming up, and they do well for themselves in the regions. So we fundamentally believe that India is a massive country, massive and mighty in size. So there will be bunch of players which will come with 200, 500,000, 2,000 EVs and circle around there. But to scale it to a 40,000 EV model, 50,000 EV ride hailing model, you will need massive investment in charging infra. And somebody who wants to invest half a billion or a billion charging infra will need players like BluSmart to underwrite demand. So we thought that the chicken and egg problem is a perennial problem, will continue to exist. If we solve both the problems, we only become the mighty ride hailing player and we only become the mighty charging player, they can genuinely accelerate the EV adoption, where we bring thousands of EVs on the road and we bring massive charging infra to support our own EV and also third party charging.
Got it. Got it. That sounds
And that is the approach that we took from day one. So we were successful on the Uber platform. We were successful on our platform. What we then created was our own app. Now, Everest will always depend on Uber to bring demand. And if Uber leaves India, then they'll depend on Ola to bring demand. And if Ola shuts down their ride hailing business because of focus on two-wheeler manufacturing, then they'll depend on BluSmart to bring demand. But they're not creating demand. So everybody I speak to right now is scared to take a big bet on fighting against Uber. So to create another ride-hailing service is challenging. And we took that third big bet. Not only we brought our own cars and our own charging infra, we created the tech stack, the on-demand ride-hailing service. And BluSmart became as a third category leader in India, taking on Ola and Uber directly on the mic. That was only possible because we completed the triangle. We completed all the 3 point checkpoints needed. Your own tech stack for charging, your own tech stack for ride hailing, your own charging platform, asset heavy, your own EV fleet management and service platform and operation service. And all this comes from our experience of running energy infra projects, where we are manufacturing solar panels, using our own panels in our own solar power plant. So we have done this 10 years back. What we're
got it.
doing now in this space, we always knew that this is going to be the scale. If you look at Adani Power, they manufacture their own cells, manufacture their own panels, use their own panels in their own solar power plant. So they complete the value chain. And we are vertically integrated. A lot of companies that speak to, read about, get spoken about, including you asking me a question, they're not vertically integrated companies. The success mantra or the key success for growth is being vertically integrated. And if you don't do, then the scale will be finite or limited. At one point, saturation comes, tiredness comes, fatigue comes in, and capital stops coming in. And that's when these models will kind of shut down.
What is
Uh,
your expansion strategy now going forward? You're in two cities. You sort of are in the you're known as the cool brand now to be using uh, between the between the young like adults, Gen Z, millennials, etc. Uh, so how are you looking at building the Blue Smart brand, and what is the expansion strategy now for you guys going forward?
the expansion strategy, Karan, is to focus on mega cities of India. We saw Delhi NCR was a great entry strategy. With our learnings, we understood that 23% of India's mobility and ride-hailing market, transportation market is Delhi NCR. It's got a population of 52 million, which is 1.3 times the population of Spain's population and 1.45 times the population of Ukraine's population. It's massive. It's a country, not a city. And it's also the largest aviation market of India. Indira Gandhi International Airport is the single largest airport of India, catering to about 24% of India's aviation traffic. So it was the right market to launch. And the second market for us was Bangalore. It's the second largest mobility transportation market in India, second largest airport of India, along with Mumbai on the same length. And between these two cities, 45% of India's mobility and transportation market opportunity exists. So we focused on these large, massive opportunities and we launched in these two cities. Now the idea is to go deep and wide across the two geographies and scale with thousands of cars in these two cities. This is where the money will be made. In terms of brand, the brand of Blue Smart means reliability. Um, uh, Customers just love us for our reliability. We are reliable in terms of pricing, reliable in terms of turning up on time, reliable in terms of comfort, reliable in terms of peace of mind for all the travel needs. So customers are really, really loving the reliability and convenience that BluSmart offers on the ride-hailing business. Similar experience will come on the charging infra part now. BluSmart will become the most preferred charging infra company in India. We are building the threat of charging. So the biggest challenge that we saw for Starbucks in London, I'm giving you an analogy. If you go to US or New York, you'll see Starbucks is everywhere. And people go to Starbucks because they are prime location. But if you go to London, you will see Pret is everywhere. You will see a Starbucks in some alley inside. And Starbucks missed out on the prime location with Pret got. So my learnings was, or our learnings at BluSmart was that largely McDonald's, Starbucks, and Pret are not food companies, they are real estate companies because they have to be at right location. Applying the same logic, we are building out charging infra at prime locations across the city, and cities have two big challenges: finite prime location, finite power load. So if we get power load there, tap that prime location, build out the charging infra, then we have created an unparalleled mode. And that same charging infra will serve BluSmart. And because it's at prime location, everybody will come in there and charge. So that's convenience for charging. uh, Charging at prime locations, at convenient locations, and convenient EV charging. So what BluSmart ride hailing experience is today for the consumer, the same thing we are building in charging for business, but that entire business is B2B till now. In 2024, we'll make that business B2C. And as soon as we open that business B2C, BluSmart will also be visible as a convenient charging company. This powerful combination of convenient charging, convenient ride hailing availability is the unparalleled moat in the mobility and energy infrastructure ecosystem.
Got it. I just want to switch gears a little bit, and try and bust a few myths like around over here, right? So one of the biggest feedback I always hear from people is that, uh, is that electric vehicles actually have a much higher carbon footprint than your fossil fuel driven vehicles because of the materials that go into the batteries, like largely, right? Uh, like, is there something that I would love to hear from you? What is it that you think? What is it that you can say to
Actually,
actually just
that
bust that
isn't
myth?
correct. That
Yeah,
isn't correct. So, to make a car, you have to probably uh, you have to use materials which are aluminum, steel, or whatever stuff. That's equal in both the cars. The body of the car for a ICE car or a petrol car is the same. In terms of making in the engine, also the materials that we use, they're all mined from the earth only. And all the mining is equal again for manufacturing a ICE car or an EV car. The only difference between both the cars is that the moving parts in a EV is much lesser. So you obviously you're saving on tons of materials which are lesser in a EV because EVs have very few moving parts compared to ICE cars which have thousands of moving parts, a massive engine, and all that is not on Earth. It has to be taken out from Earth or everything is mined. The only difference between both is the battery. And now once the battery is mined at one go, it can be recycled completely. Almost 95 to 96% of the battery can be completely recycled. Once the cars run on the road, they have zero emissions. So the zero tailpipe emission is a huge benefit of EVs. They don't create any emissions. ICE car creates perennial emissions till it runs. So the emission that ICE car generates is very, very high compared to an EV. The battery part, which obviously we are mining out, there is obviously emissions that are being generated while the mining is being done or while the materials are being manufactured. But like I mentioned, BluSmart is a vertically integrated company with charging infra and ride hailing now going electric. Now switching to green energy. The same thing and also can be done for mining sector. So now we are seeing green mining happening, green steel manufacturing happening. We will see increasingly that the manufacturing space, which is manufacturing solar panels or wind turbines or EVs, will also start using renewable energy or green sources of energy or greening the entire process. That will be a 2 or 3 decade long process, but will happen. By 2060, 70, we'll see most of the large manufacturing companies shifting to renewable energy. But yes, you will have to mine things from the earth because that is where things are. We'll have to create some logical emissions to begin with, but to ensure that in future there are no emissions. So while emissions are happening right now, nobody can stop them, but we have to limit them. The whole idea is to create if emissions are happening today, that should not be perennial. We have to limit emissions. So I'm not saying neither anybody in the world would be saying, including Bill Gates, that emissions will go to zero. We have to limit the emission to a level that in the future we don't
very,
need to do it
yeah,
in such a large quantity.
that's a very
That
valid
is
point that you're
yeah.
making. We have to limit it. We don't have to eliminate it. We need to limit it, and like
Yeah.
hopefully, like, over time,
Like
we.
where people live. Like so in cities when people are living, they don't want emission. Nobody
Yeah,
lives next to a factory. You go
yeah.
to a factory, you work and you come back. But in cities, people are living. So cities are getting choked with pollution, construction pollution, transportation pollution. And transportation pollution accounts for nearly 28% of all greenhouse gas emissions which are happening. If world emits 52 billion tons of CO2 emissions every year, 25 to 28% depending on the countries. India, 28% comes from transportation spaces, very, very high. And that is leading to a lot of challenges, loss in GDP, loss in health, health of people are getting very bad. People are not so fit anymore in mega cities. They're choked with problems in the body. Lung issues are happening to young people. Asthma at very young age. A lot of stuff is happening. The new India is not so fit. It could have been fitter if we now take care of the pollution in cities, and that is where efforts of the government or private sector is coming in. And I think over the next 20 years, we can probably rectify the mistakes that we made in the last 20 years.
So with the millions, so that's like that's a great segue for me to get into the next question, uh, which is with the millions like of rides that you're doing like every month. What is the impact of that? And like, is that something that y'all are measuring like at BluSmart and actually putting out like in terms of like, listen,
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
is the amount like of
And
emissions
that
that.
is, yeah, 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 absolutely. So the company has saved net about 30,000 metric tons of CO2 emission since launch, and that number is little varied. It could be a little higher. We have taken a conservative number, but it's about 30,000 metric tons of CO2 savings since launch. The company has done and growing rapidly, and the contribution is it's pretty immense in such a short span of time.
You recently also got like approved to raise carbon credits for these
Yeah.
emissions saved. Uh, how was that process, and have you locked in prices for those credits? Do you have buyers in place?
Yeah, 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 we have, but as of now, we keep it to ourselves. At an opportune time, we will use them. We have been registered and accredited with Vera,
Mhm.
so that's the body that has with whom we are registered. Uh, it was done last year. Sometime last year, we did the registration with Vera, VERRA, Vera.
Yeah, Vera, so no, familiar with that. Uh, how has your fundraise journey been? Just from the initial days of you bringing up this idea of BluSmart and this entire play that you've been describing for so much time in this call. Uh, what, uh, of course, you've been extremely successful in raising multiple rounds of capital, but just talk to me about the initial journey of you actually raising those initial dollars from investors. How difficult was that story, and how was that journey?
The story largely has been the same. Our day one idea was to build a ride hailing service and a charging infrastructure network, which is intertwined, interconnected. So there was no change in our story or our fundamental founding tenets. It's weather-proof, COVID-proof, investor-proof.
How
But
did you
yeah,
get like investors to buy into this, right? Like, how did you convince them
yeah,
that you can
yeah.
actually
So
take on an Uber or an Ola?
because we were convinced about ourselves, although we were laughed upon initially by a lot of naysayers, by a lot of investors who became investors later on. But I'm sure that was the journey of Indigo also when they started on taking the might of Indigo, Jet Airways and Kingfisher and Air India. Even they were laughed upon that how can you take on the mighty jet and Air India with 10 aircraft. Today they have 306 aircraft and 66% market share. But the journey from 10 planes to 300 planes took 18 years, 17 years for Indigo to do. And both the competitions they were fighting with are no more in existence. I mean, one merged with Vistara and one shut down. So, so we knew that look, we knew where the market was going. Some people understand it early, some people take time to understand, but we eventually gave ourselves and our investors time to understand the model. And slowly we could convince them. It was a process, it was a slow process, but it was a good sustainable process. And since we come from sustainable energy background, we knew that it was not going to be happening over time. It will take time, and we gave it time. We gave time to ourselves and also to investors to understand because a lot of innovation is not easily understood. It takes time for people to comprehend innovation, and it takes time. Like Chat GPT has been around, I've still not been able to embrace it, and I'm still learning how to use Chat GPT. It's an amazing technology, but I am probably not so good at embracing Chat GPT right now. Maybe I should use. I recently read Oxford said that you should write your essays using Chat GPT.
Yeah.
So technology is something that one should embrace, and this is what happened in our case. Some people believed in us, maybe thousand of them didn't believe. So it was a challenging journey, and that is what made BluSmart pretty exciting. And it was a good journey that we really enjoyed pitching and convincing people. and that further validated our own belief in our own subject. Had it been an easier route, maybe BluSmart would not have been so successful because it was quite challenging. That really helped us build a better company.
What were the largest challenges you faced, Puneet? Just as a founder, you and
From
Anmol.
our side, yeah, so I think the charging infra piece continues to be the largest challenge for company to grow. All our growth plans are limited to or directly correlated to how quickly and how quickly
Are
we
you
build out
looking at
large EV
partnerships?
charging.
Are you looking at partnerships with people like a Charge Zone or the other sort of like charging companies that are out there?
Yeah, so charging partnerships are always welcome, but the whole idea is since we're building our own large charging infra business, we see it as a huge opportunity to build out our own charging, but although we can still collaborate and partner with other companies where we'll bring in utilization. Our fleet will act as the large demand creator for those charging hubs. But the whole idea is to build out our own large charging infra business.
And how is the story now for you to actually get investors on board? Because you've got businesses, one on the cab side, you said that, look, you have DFIs to fund the cabs and actually give
Hmm.
the debt, the equity is probably given by you guys. But even that requires capital. Uh, uh, at the same time, you're building out this massive charging infrastructure. So the need to raise equity continues constantly for you guys, right? So how is now that narrative and that story for investors changing, and is there a little bit more confidence now with investors in that, listen, the model has proven now itself and it just like it's an easy yes for them?
Yeah, so I mean, we have institutionalized the entire supply side. Like I said, we have raised funding, decent amount. We have raised nearly $200 million in venture capital, including debt, venture debt, and equity. And we today have raised funding for more than 15,000 EVs. There's a lot of belief and confidence from institutions to give cars to BluSmart. We have funding in place for 15,000 plus EVs. As we speak right now, in the next 6 months or 5, 6 months, we raise funding for another 10,000 EVs. And by mid next year, BluSmart would have secured institutional funding for 25,000 EVs. That will be the largest number. The largest EV fleet in the world operated by any company. By Uber's largest EV fleet in London right now is 7,000 EV. So that just goes to tell you three times the size of Uber's largest electric fleet in any city in the world, which is London, where they operate 7,000 EVs. So that just tells you the size and scale in the EV terms that we are achieving or going there. Today, the funding is in place for 2x that amount. Similarly, in charging infra, now we're getting a lot of institutions interested to fund us for charging. We'll be making in 1, 2 months some large announcement for our charging. We just made one announcement yesterday that we're investing in the new capital raise for charging infrastructure business.
Yeah.
So, so we are getting very good feedback and winning votes of confidence from our investors for our model. And the biggest strength that we get, what pushes us to do what we do, is the customer love. Customer love is tremendous. It's amazing. And customers really, really love our service. We have been rated 4.9 out of 5 stars. And their feedback is the most critical one. Their feedback is really amazing. And that allows us to stay on the path to build what we are building.
Got it. uh just to round out the conversation, would love to know, who are your role models? What gives you the strength to to continue building on uh, on the Blue Smart business, and who are the role models that you want to sort of like emulate?
When you think about it, role models for us as a company, I
Or
mean,
even, no, 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 I actually meant it for you personally.
okay, for me, I think for me, I think role model would be my co-founder Anmol. I think he's amazing as a person, in
That's
terms
an
of
answer that I've never
he's
heard.
the
Someone saying
he's
that
a
my co-founder is my role model.
yeah,
Okay.
he's a great character and very reliable as a person, and that translates into the reliability from the service that we expect. If a company is run by reliable people, they can build a reliable product for consumers. That's fantastic. Anmol's always on time. He turns before time for every meeting. He's always very disciplined, and I think all that got into BluSmart. BluSmart always turns up on time for the customers. The drivers are very disciplined, and he's a fantastic operator. And our operations at BluSmart is just fantastic. So I think he's a great. person to look up to, and I think yeah, he's he's the ultimate role model that I would probably look up to if I were to look outside of myself and look at anyone.
Like I've heard like answers like Elon Musk or the usual like suspects, right? Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, etc.
I
This is
have
the
never
first
met them, so I
this is the
don't know them.
first
I
time
mean,
that I'm actually hearing someone say that my co-founder is my role model, but that's also like a testament to the relationship that the both of you all share, right? I think that's
because
incredible and that's showing in the success.
yeah, because Mr. Musk and Mr. Gates, I've not met them. I don't know them. I've read about them on media, and I don't know. A media dictation could not probably become into a role model stuff. But yeah, if I know them well, or if I would have known them, they could have become role model. But I don't know much about them. I've never met them in the past. So
Uh, just to help young like entrepreneurs like out there in this space who are now coming into this whole climate uh, uh, with in the entire climate segment. Uh, what are the two, three bits of advice you, as a successful founder, would probably give them?
advice or opportunities? Advice in terms of what? In
Uh,
terms of opportunities?
no,
I think there's
advice
a
and opportunities. Give me both. Like, what is the advice you would give them, like as founders, uh, just like in general, and what sort of opportunities do
okay.
you think would play
Okay.
out?
I think in terms of opportunities, there are massive opportunities in the renewable energy space now, setting up solar power plants or wind plants. The world is going green. There are huge opportunities for manufacturing electric cars. Also for battery recycling could be a huge opportunity as, gigawatts of batteries will come into use over the next 10, 20 years. Uh, Advice would be obviously that could be to any business will be perseverance. I think to stay focused on what you want to do and persevere and be persistent. I think if you persist and persevere, I think you can achieve wonders. Sometimes you don't need a lot of education, but what you need is perseverance to do stuff. So that will be the advice part. That's the only motto we follow for ourselves, so we can practice what we preach. Um, and the opportunities I shared about. Yeah,
Great. Look, it's been an absolute like pleasure having you like uh on the conversation today, Puneet. Thank you so much for your time. We at GFC are really happy to see you progress the way that you are, and very happy to have you within our portfolio. So, thank you once again for your time, and we look forward in this journey with you.
thank you so much, Karan. Thank you.